Steve and Joe. They both wake up in the morning, feel drowsy, feel dull, don't want to tackle the day. We've all been there. But Steve, he does something very different. Instead of waking up and carrying on with the day, he does this practice called painting your inner worlds. Painting his own inner worlds has been a practice Steve has been following for years, and this has caused him to live many energy-filled days, which would otherwise have been very drowsy and dull. And what is this practice? And how is this relevant to the metaverse? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. And by the end, you will see and realize why programmers of this metaverse, people who will create these worlds, the VR, AR worlds, will have extreme power over changing people's mind. That's what I truly believe. Firstly, what is this practice of painting your own worlds? Well, this is a practice just like Steve I've been following for about 8 years. This is not some voodoo magic that I come up with. This is something I've actually truly practiced for 8 years. It's on meditation, it's on guided meditations, it's on any of that. It's completely unprescripted, and all you do is you get up in the morning and spend 1 hour sitting in silence and imagining the worlds you want to create. Let me give you an example. Back when I was at university, but my first years when I started going to these entrepreneurial events and applying to business plan competitions. At that point, I was not very confident of my business capabilities or my ability to speak in public and all of that. So what I did was I started during my painting my own world sessions in the morning. I started to visualize Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and me in a conference room, and we would discuss and bounce ideas off each other. So this is me visualizing and making up this own world in my head, nothing more, nothing less. It's not just a static picture that you imagine you're in your head. You go into very vivid details. You imagine the smell in the room. You imagine what they would smell like who are next to you, Steve and Elon. I can tell you Steve smells much more worse than Elon. If you read his biography, you'll understand why. Yeah, you have to go into the vivid details, the smell of the people there, what the weather feels like. Is it a hot day? Is it a cold day? What the colors are around you, the more you try going into these details and the more vividly you could imagine, the more effect it has on your mind. And when you come out of that session, you really feel like you've been in another world, in another dimension, and you just came out of it. And every single thought you manufactured in that different dimension, in my case, the world, the conference room, and Steve and Elon, would carry over, a lot of it would carry over into the real world. So I would walk out of the session, open my eyes, and walk into the real world, and I would walk with the confidence of a person who has just talked face to face with Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. And then I would go and pitch in business plan competitions, and eventually in about 3 years I won about 6 different competitions and got about 20,000 pounds to test out my idea. Now, of course, I don't solely attribute the success to this practice, but I'm just giving you one concrete example of how I use it. And I've used it for many different cases, not just this, not just fears, But the fundamental concept is that the more vividly you could manufacture these worlds in your head, the more real it becomes eventually. Now, this is something I truly stand by, and I've truly practiced in many different aspects of my life. And this is not just my case. There's a great book that I read recently. When I was reading it, that's when I got the idea of making this video, because I realized a lot of the concepts in that book were actually stuff I've experienced for real. And the book is called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's by this plastic surgeon who wrote the book, and he was basically describing how in his practice as a surgeon, he would see that people's self-image completely changes when he changes their faces. Or completely insecure people will become extremely secure and confident just because they change their beliefs and their mindsets through a visual change in their body. It's a great book. He talks a lot about imagination, the power of the imagination, and how it could change your realities. For example, he talks about chess players who completely train by just imagining moves and imagining games, and people who don't do that, and how the ones who imagine more. It's a great book on understanding the power of imagination to create new realities. Now, this could also work the other way around, of course, right? Like if you imagine the world is bad and imagine a fearful situation, it's more likely it would happen. Before I jump into the metaverse bit, to give you another example of how this could go bad, back when I was a kid, like almost a kid, probably 16, 17 years, no, 15, 14 years, I used to be really into basketball. This was in my middle school. And it's a very unfounded fear. I was quite good at basketball. I used to play for the school team and stuff. I used to practice a lot, probably that's why. But eventually it got to a point I got super obsessed with basketball that there used to come a point where I was super scared of even playing basketball. might be saying like, why are you scared of playing something you enjoy? Well, I was not scared of playing it in private, like, you know, with my friends and stuff, but playing in actual matches, performing, I used to be like always scared that I will mess things up. Eventually got to a point where I slowly started avoiding games, slowly dropped out of the team just because of this unmanaged fear. Eventually, it came to a point where if I could just walk past to any kind of professional match, like a football match or a basketball match or anything, I would immediately, that fear would kick in and I would be like, oh my god, I'm just running away from it. And you know, I would just go into this viral negative loop of imagination, and that in reality caused me to never try those sports again. You may say this is something completely unfounded, something very silly. It's true, it sounds silly, but this is the power of imagination to alter your realities and how it could really drastically affect your life. It could work for the better, as it did for me in the last 7 years. It could work for the worse, as it did for me before those 7 years. So this is the power of imagination to create your realities. And that's what painting your inner worlds intentionally for 1 hour every morning can do to you. Now I will get into the metaverse bit. So think about a time when you watched a movie in a screen or a phone or your laptop, or when you watched a movie in the theater. When you watch it in the theater, it's like dynamic. There's surround sounds, there's bigger screen, it's immersive, you're completely focused. You would come out changed more from a theater experience rather than a laptop experience. Because in the theater, you're more focused, there's stimuli stronger, which means your brain is activated more, it changes your mind more. Currently we experience our digital life through our phone, a laptop, a screen. That is not that immersive. But VR, virtual reality, completely immersive, augmented reality, our digital lives are blended into the real world so that we don't even know it's digital. It's just part of a new reality. These are new realities, more immersive, more sensory, and more real, that are being created in this new metaverse. And that's what makes it supremely powerful. Now that is why I believe the creators, the programmers, the ones who build these worlds will literally define our thinking habits on how we evolve ourselves in the future. And that's why they hold such godlike powers, in my opinion. The worlds they create will really have a profound effect on people's lives. So now you can see the link, right? The link between painting your own inner worlds, where you're imagining new realities in your head to make your life better. The metaverse, you don't need to imagine this reality. That reality could literally be created, programmed through code, bits and bytes into the real world. That's what's really powerful, that's what's supremely exciting, and that's what gets me excited personally to be part of this industry.